and welcome back to Open Your Eyes. If you're joining us now, we are kicking off our conversation all about the 30th anniversary of the signing of the Convention of the Rights of the Child. And here to discuss the convention with us and all of the events that are taking place today is representatives. We have with us Paulette, who is a monitoring and evaluation specialist from UNICEF.
Good morning.
Good
Good
morning.
morning.
Clifford King, who is the Director of Local Government from the Ministry of Labor, Local Government and Rural Development. And we also have with us Miss Anita Gladden, who is the Children and Adolescent Participation Officer from the National Committee for Families and Children. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
Thank you for having us as well.
So maybe we can start our conversation and jump right into talking about what exactly the convention is, what we're talking about is, and how exactly it applies, you know, in terms of its importance to, you know, how we implement it in Belize. So I don't know, perhaps Clifford or Anita, you can get us started on that conversation.
Well, excuse me, sorry. Yes, we are celebrating the 30th year of the signing of the Convention on the Rights of the Child, which Belize, among many other countries, were signatories to that convention. And so we're very happy that we're at this juncture now, officially commemorating that signing, and of course celebrating International Children's Day in the same vein. And so we at the Ministry of Local Government have been involved with our partners at UNICEF and the NCFC over the last 5 or 6 years or so to implement and to carry out activities that would showcase and put spotlight on the work that we're doing with young people. From the ministry standpoint, we are involved with the town and city councils, and they have signed on, the Belize Mayors Association on behalf of the town and cities have signed on to working with UNICEF, NCFC on what we call a sustainable and child-friendly municipalities initiative. And so within each municipality, we have what we call children advisory bodies. And these bodies are a governance mechanism that help to support local authorities to make decisions that will serve the interests of children and young people in general. And we believe that if we do things right for young people and children, then we do it right for everyone.
Yeah.
So it's a spin-off benefit that we try to establish through that mechanism.
Yeah. Now, you know, let's step back to seeing the significance of Belize being a signatory to this convention. I think we always talk about Belize as a country accepting the responsibility of many different conventions, but this one is very specific to the livelihoods of children. Talk to me about that from that perspective.
Okay, thank you, Marlene. I believe that Belize, unlike most countries who have signed on to this, onto the convention, has really demonstrated its commitment to children. They have actually took a concept of the rights of children and tried to make it homegrown. In 2004, and I don't want to speak for Anita, but in 2004, the government of Belize signed on to the National Plan of Action for Children, where it actually looked at the convention and see how nationally we could then make this into an operational plan that we could see and monitor how we are changing the lives of children. And in 2015, when that plan was completed, the government went into an evaluation to see how best to better adjust this plan. Again, with the goal of ensuring that children's rights are being met. And so the government signed on to what we now call the Children's Agenda, which is until 2030.
Yeah.
And this outlines for us what is the government's commitment to children.
Yeah.
And so I think for us that is one thing that sets us apart from most countries, because we have an actual plan for children that can help us to ensure that children's rights are achieved.
Yeah. And these types of plans, they're not based on any singular administration. They're actually bipartisan documents as well.
Yes, it's bipartisan, and this document was signed by both the leader of the opposition as well as our prime minister. So we have a commitment across governments over time.
Now, you know, I think naturally people develop a sense of skepticism about what international commitments mean on the ground. So, looking back 30 years, how would you say that the lives of children in Belize have been affected since we have signed on to the Convention of the Rights of the Child?
Well, I believe that if you look around in all ministry, the government has really lived up to its commitment.
Yeah.
So we look at children across the life cycle from the age of 0 in the womb until 18. And so if you notice in the Ministry of Health have really invested in terms of maternal and child health.
Yeah.
Mothers are encouraged to take their vitamins. They're asked to and required to have 4 or more checkups to ensure that the baby, as it grows in the womb, has the right amount of nutrients, have the right amount of what it needs to grow.
Yeah.
Mothers are also taught about, you know, early stimulation, stimulating the child from in the womb. When the baby is born, there is also a number of prenatal and postnatal checks that are required. We ask that all babies are vaccinated, and that vaccination go until 2, and then there's another one at 4, and now we have in adolescents there's a vaccination as well. But it's to show, just to show that across the life cycle, when in the womb, when health is more important, that is when you notice that all the interventions are there to protect the child.
Yeah.
As the child starts primary schools and preschool, there are various opportunities for children to be engaged from an early stage, whether or not it's through primary school or what the government call roving caregivers, you know, to show parents and caregivers, you know, how to stimulate their children, even though they're not in quote-unquote a ECD setting, that the children still have the right type of stimulation and learn and develop as well. We have one of the highest rates in terms of primary school attendance rate, enrollment rate, I should say. Secondary school, we know that that's, you know, is an issue. However, we have seen the government put in place different subsidies to ensure that young people remain in school. Yes, it's only until second form, but let's, you know, work at that to ensure that it goes on to the end of secondary education.
Yeah.
But right across the board, we have seen the commitment, as Clifford as well mentioned. The Ministry of Labor, Local Government and Rural Development has really worked with the municipality to look at creating child-friendly municipality, and I must say they will be certified on Friday. How many of them had met that commitment? What are they doing locally to improve the lives of children? And we're not just talking about parks and playgrounds. We're also talking about their opportunity to be able to be a part of local government, because they are actually a part of the caucus, the council caucus. They should be a part of the meetings, and they should look at plans that the municipality have for children and assess whether or not they're child friendly. So even from that perspective, we can see that there has been strides on various sectors to improve the lives of children.
I just kind of want to stick a pin in that on that conversation, because I think maybe for the benefit of our viewers, we can like talk a little bit about what exactly is a child-friendly municipality. What's the ideal situation where, you know, in that sort of scenario, what is that ideally child-friendly environment? Let's
of course,
call
this
it.
This is an evolving concept. It's very new to Belize. We have had study tours where we have seen what's happening in Costa Rica, we've seen what's happening in Brazil and other parts of the region. As I said, this is an evolving process, and we're at this juncture now where our municipal governments are recognizing that we have this cadre of young people in our spaces that are integral to us, and we have set up this mechanism for these young people now to work with you as municipal leaders in terms of indicating to you, as a child, these are the things that are impacting me, whether it is security, walking along the walkway in Belmopan, and I don't have to worry about someone robbing me because there's sufficient lighting. The police are roving these areas. We are involved in indicating to the council that the traffic flow, for example, restrict our movement, and we need wardens around. We need to make sure that the pedestrian crossings are safe and that they're well built and those types of things. And those are the types of information that are guiding the decisions that the councils are making. Paulette spoke about the development plans of the councils, and so the children are involved in looking at those plans and indicating to the councils how these plans need to shape and how they need to be implemented, that we can benefit from them not only for now but going forward.
So it's the children that tell you what to do.
And so
from the actual municipalities.
Within the municipalities, the young people meet with their mayors and their council members very often. In some municipalities more than others, of course. But we have very good examples. And so we're going to look at certifying those municipalities based on the level of achievement that they have so far. And so on Friday, we're going to recognize the great work that these mayors and their council people are doing with the young people.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that when we were looking at the certification process, we were thinking bronze, gold, silver. And when we had the consultation with the children, they said, Miss, you the old time, the platinum #1. So now there are 4 categories. You could be certified at bronze, silver, gold, and platinum.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
So I think that for the most part, local government used to feel that they're only responsible for roads and streets. But more and more and more, they have seen where they have been receiving letters, they have been receiving face-to-face contact with their communities, asking them for different things. You know, support for school, support for medical expenses. And so even though it's not a part of their mandate, so to speak, the community is asking for this, and so it is like, you know, like the fire is there, and so they have to respond to their communities, because they are the face, they are the ones who interact with these communities on a day-to-day basis.
It's pretty encouraging to hear of municipal bodies taking on an advisory council made up of children. Because we don't think like children anymore. That's just the reality of what it is. And I wanted to get Anita in, because this is really, I think, the key, the essence of why children participation is important. That's your forte. So talk to me first in terms of explaining why we need to encourage children's participation.
Thank you, Marlene. Well, first off, I'd like to start by saying Happy World Children's Day to all children. Children's participation, and looking 30 years ago, that wasn't the case in Belize. So we're excited now that we're at this venture and we're having a National Assembly filled with children, and we're discussing the issues. But Paulette and Mr. King rightfully said, these advisory bodies and these agencies, we're now engaging with children. So we're at the root of where we see children and stakeholders coming together and not only discussing issues, but looking at recommendations and how we could look forward in, you know, setting the stage for all children in Belize. We know that they can't be all children that are involved in these processes, but the way that these advisory bodies, they are set up, is very diverse. They have specific criteria and qualification that they do intake for these children. So they are represented on these bodies. We look at budgetary planning and all of these cycles that local government and these municipalities go through. And we're seeing more and more through these advisory bodies and these setups that we have, that they're involved in these process. So this is where we're talking about children's participation and how children's true meaning of participation comes in. They're engaged, they're fully aware of what's happening, and they're taken seriously. This wasn't the case 30 years ago. So we're at a amazing milestone 30 years ago, since 30 years ago.
Yeah, just wanting to add that of Anita is that, you know, today, you know, is Children's Day. And we are also celebrating the 30 years of CRC. And the government of Belize have really invested in terms of celebrating this event. We have done this in 3 folds. There has been a recommitment by the Prime Minister to the Convention on the Rights of the Child. We also are having the Children's Parliament. And then on Friday we have what we call a Children's Award ceremony, where we will be acknowledging NGOs that have done a good job in terms of children. We will also look at media house and media personnel. I think they were given the CRC and different scenarios, and the media personnel were asked to, create some sort of video on rights. And so I'm excited to see who actually won. We will know that on Friday. There is also the award for various children. We looked across the country on children, and we asked for children to be nominated, children who are good at vocational work, children who are good in business, children who are have been doing work in their communities, children who are good with art and culture, agriculture, and in agriculture we also consider fishing. So if you're a good fisherman, then yes, as well. So on Friday as well, we will also be finding out who those winners are, and we got quite a few applications and nominees.
Wow. I was actually going to, feed into what was going to be my next question.
Okay, sorry.
Actually, no, I was actually going to ask. Since this whole topic that we're talking about, whether it's working with the agencies or government, we've been saying that you do get direct feedback from children themselves or from younger persons. So I just wanted to know how involved they actually are, and what you're telling me just now suggests that they're involved in all these different areas. So is it that we're seeing a high level of participation from young people in all of these different sectors as well?
I want to say so, and please don't let me have the mic. But
just jump on it.
I really want to say so, because since we have established the Children's Advisory Body, the Children's Advisory Body has supported in so many ways. They were consulted in the newly drafted national strategy for adolescent health. They were also consulted as UNICEF and NCFC draft the new CETAN for this year. They were also consulted for the mental health issues that we're trying to find a solution to. They were also provided inputs as well for the report on the Conventions of the Rights of the Child, or a country's report. So since the advent of the CAB, really children have been involved in various decision-making processes, and their participation have been more than tokenistic. It's not for them just to be there.
We have to show that you have a child.
Yes, we have found ways to incorporate and to get their views. UNICEF, along with the NCFC, and Anita will tell you the whole cadre of agency, because I don't know everyone, but I know that both BTL and SMART are a part of the committee, what we call U-Reporters. And that is a way for us to get information from children who are not, quote unquote, in the regular structure, not in school and not in employment, but around. As long as you have a phone, you can be a reporter. And so we have tried to engage young people as much as possible in the decision-making processes.
But of course, we have taken this on since 2014 in the ministry, and we have seen the great expanse in terms of how children are being engaged. But of course, we know that we have a lot of work to do. There's a lot of work to do. As a matter of fact, we keep harping in our ministry, how do we try to ensure that our rural children are involved? Fortunately, for the Children's Parliament, we have broad representation from every constituency in Belize, from all 31, and we have expanded it to also include children roles as Mace Bearer, House Speaker, and all those other administrative services that the National Assembly provide. But of course, the concern will always be, how do we ensure that our rural children are being engaged, and not only those who are living in the municipality? And so those are the type of challenges that we'll continue to work with over the years, and in fact in the coming months.
I'm always excited when we have conversations with kids or children on the show, because it's just a really great reminder of how much we underestimate their capacity to be able to weigh in on just about any issue, and with their very own unique perspective. And I think when we talk about, or when we hear from you about the children's advisory committees and having them in consultations, it isn't something that everybody can be able to visualize and understand the impact of. So can you give me some examples of where children have perhaps come up with a solution or raised an issue that, had it only been adults in the room, people would have never considered? It could be in either one of your consultations or especially at the municipality level.
I'll give you a particular example.
Yes.
There are several, but I'll give you one that really sticks with me all the time. In San Ignacio, there's a very active child advisor, everybody that works very closely. As a matter of fact, Mayor Trapp has incorporated the child advisor, everybody, in almost every aspect of his municipal government in terms of the departments and the work that the council does. But in their strategic plan, the San Ignacio CAB recognized that bullying was an issue that they have been grappling with in San Ignacio and the influence that is having on young people. And a couple of weeks ago, what the CAB did was to organize what they call an anti-bullying campaign, and they actually have now established anti-bullying ambassadors. And these ambassadors were trained in the type of outreach, the type of work, the type of engagement that they are to have with young people. And so in San Ignacio, strategically, there are these anti-bullying ambassadors that are working with young people in schools, in the neighborhoods, and to actually help young people to understand what that means, how that impacts other young people, and what they can really do to mitigate the effects of anti-bullying. And for us, that is very significant because all of the issues, or a lot of the issues that we're having with crime and young people in crime begin simply with the bullying tactics and engagement that young people start with.
Of the beef.
Exactly, you know. And so that for me in particular is a very specific example of how young people are engaging young people and how we as the agencies and government are supporting them to be able to do that.
And do you find that there's like follow through in these initiatives, like that the effects do, the results that they do yield
these
results?
young people will tell you, and you need to speak with them because they will tell you they don't drop the ball.
I think more and more, sorry, Mr. King, the spaces are opening up. And I like that it's cross-cutting. It's more agencies and more people are opening up to children's participation, and not only through consultation but actually engaging them in making the decisions or influencing the decisions that needs to be met. I know of the San Ignacio incident as well, where they were planning to build the park and they were like, no, we need lights, we need a ramp for children who aren't like us. So when you talk about if adults,
so there was an actual diversion from
if only
creating a
adults,
park
so we
to
look
putting
at
more lights.
how the infrastructure pieces tie in. So more spaces are opening up, and they're engaging in how these issues could be fixed if children are in the room, if children are consulted, if children are part of the process. So from planning straight through to implementation, that's where we want to see from this point on that children are engaged.
No, I'm sure, you know, I think it's so good. It's great to hear the examples of how children are being integrated in some of these activities and policy making. But we can't forget the ones that are left behind. And I think that when we think, and perhaps through the news and social media, the stories that resonate with people the most, unfortunately, won't be children advisory committees working along with town councils or city councils. It'll be the children who are abused or neglected or malnourished or not able to get an education. And I wanted to find out a bit more from that angle. How are we working to elevate those who are in the most vulnerable of situations?
Well, first of all, the CABs, in terms of the members of the CABs, we have asked that the municipalities also encourage children who are not in school, children who are on the streets, children who are not employed, who can also be a part because they do have something to say. In terms of us getting the children for the parliament, I think this is one of the gaps. One of the gaps is that I don't think that people who are not in these institutions participated or found it important to apply for this process. And we understand that they're grappling with several different issues that they're facing that we might not know. Through the CAB, we have tried as well to ensure that, for instance, you spoke about abuse. So we train them as, like, quote unquote, peer resources. So we give them information, how to identify abuse. what are the mechanisms that are in place for reporting? How do you report? So that they are able to help their peers. And so we're hoping that they become like our little cadets on the streets, because they are face to face with these children to say, okay, if you are being abused, this is where you report it. Because when we did the assessment, many are afraid to go to the police. You know, they will find comfort in teachers or in counselors. So how do we use the spaces that they find that is safe for them to be able to provide that support that is needed?
We have other programs, of course, going on simultaneously that will continue to support these programs. One particular, or two in particular, is we have what we call a Return to Happiness program. We go out in all the municipalities and we train counselors on how to help children to return to happiness after a disaster or some traumatic event. But we're also at this juncture, as a matter of fact, in the coming weeks, we're going to launch, not only for Belize but for the Caribbean region, a set of protocols of how do we engage children in emergency situations, so that whenever there's an emergency situation, typically we have lumped everyone in the package and try to provide services, and we find out that people fall through the cracks because they can't access these services. And so now we are setting up with the National Emergency Organization, NEMO, how we are to handle children in emergency situations. So there's a series of initiatives that are being implemented. Ultimately, the goal is that we're all inclusive and we're reaching everyone. Ultimately, that's the challenge that we'll have, and we're hoping that by 2030, when we look 10 years after this, we would say, okay, we have gone this very far, and we could say 80, 90% of all our children in Belize have access to these basic services that they so rightly deserve.
Now, I don't want to lose the opportunity, because we're so quickly running out of time, to talk about what's happening today and the significance of it all. So the children are literally, do we want to call it an invasion or just a takeover?
It's a takeover.
I think it's an invasion than a takeover. They're breaking down the doors and heading in there. What is the significance, and why was it decided that this was the best route to really showcase or to celebrate the 30th anniversary?
You know something, Marlene, you mentioned that how different agencies work together in terms for children. And when we got together to decide on what we would do for CRC at 30, what we noticed that on most people's work plan, there was something about getting the children into the parliament. So it was on Anita's work plan, being the child participation officer from NCFC. It was on our work plan for SCFM. It was on the special envoy work plan as well. It was on DYS work plan, and it was also on Restore Belize. And so we said, okay, since it's something that we all want, how do we make it possible? And so we decided to have a conversation with Ms. Laura. Ms. Laura said, wow, this is what I promised myself. It's my goal, being the Speaker of the House, to get children in the House. And they have been very, very supportive in terms of teaching us the standing orders, because I didn't know, and I'm sure you didn't know. But no, we know, you know, and because they have really embraced this opportunity. They've really gone out of the way to ensure that the children have the documents, that they provide facilitators to train them, that we have access to the house, that they could practice, so that it's not new. Even for the sergeant of arms will be given the actual, what do you call the mace to carry. So, you know.
I saw interestingly, I received a copy of a notice that the clerk of the National Assembly sent out, that there'll be a special sitting of the House today. So an official notice went out. So we're anticipating today very much, and yes, it will be a takeover. And so we are hoping and anticipating that we'll have the parliamentarians in there, the elected representatives to be in there, and they will have a chance to observe the children in action and to take notes.
Oh, they'll be in the observer seat.
Exactly. Exactly.
But
and our speaker will be in full control of the happenings in the House today.
I must say that the parliamentarians have really gone out as well to support these children. Our PM, from the children, has met with the Prime Minister. They had a long talk. Nadir, our opposition leader has also met with the leader of the opposition, and they have had various other ministers. I remember yesterday while we were practicing, Cordell was here listening and trying to support the person from his constituency as well. And there were a few ministers, I think Mr. Honorable Patrick Faber, that was not here but was able to speak to that person virtually. So again, they have gone out of their way as well to ensure that children have the space that they need to be able to perform well.
What about the representation of the children? Who's going to be here today?
Well, we have done the selection, like I said, prior to this entire celebration.
Yeah.
And we have children from all over the country. So we have representation not only from Belize City, it's very diverse. We have Stan Creek, we have Cayo, San Ignacio, as far as Benque, Toledo, Aguacate, down south. So it's very diverse. But today we will actually be hearing, like you said, some of the true issues. Because while we're celebrating today, we know that there are some gaps. And these children, you'll hear from them, but they have prepared some of the true issues that they see are major concerns for them, not only in their schools, but in their communities and at large, the entire Belize, and what they see necessary must be done. So you'll hear concerns, you'll hear recommendations, and also, you know, they will be talking to these policymakers and us, and they will be holding us the task to see that, okay, this is what needs to be done. I've tapped into some of the conversations that were happening, and it was very heated. It was very heated. So I'm like, okay,
They're ready.
they're on.
Final question for me. How do we not make this just a one-off symbolic event? What's being implemented so that the children who are given a voice are not just given it this once?
So that is the most important question,
Yes.
because that is what John Q. Public really needs to know. The children will actually be tabling a motion today that will be documented, well documented. We have someone that we have contracted to document the entire proceeding and the results of today. And that report, that motion will be voted on by the children today, and that will be sent to the Speaker of the House, Mrs. Laura, who will then present that to the National Assembly. And one of the reasons why the parliamentarians are going to be here today is because we want them to recognize from this very point today that these motions will be presented today, and it will be their responsibility then to take up what the children are saying and come to the House and seriously seek to enact what is practical, what is feasible in the short term, but also what can be put into the plans for the medium to long term. So that is the full intention, and we're anticipating that we're not going to be ceremonial and we're not going to be symbolic, but we're actually going to do something today.
Well, that's...
And our goal is to ensure that we have an annual Children's Parliament. And so I know that Anita's task is really cut out for her in terms of finding out what it is. So we are doing this not only for the children, but also for us to be able to pilot, to see what it takes in terms of human resources, but also what it takes financially to be able to sustain this over time.
And at a national level, I'd just like to say that we have a children and adolescent technical working group that's a shared balance between stakeholders and children who will be taking this process forward. So looking at a strategic direction and how it will be more structured. We know today is really about celebrating Children's Day and the 30 years that we have come to know, but in CRC, but looking at a strategic direction from this point onward.
All right. Well, we thoroughly enjoy your company. I do want to say this much. We want to talk to the kids now. But no, you've definitely set the backdrop for today. And what I greatly acknowledge about what you said is that we have come far, but there's still a lot more to go. And I think that's a very sober reflection that anyone should make at 30 years. Exactly. And so we look forward to talking to this younger generation to see what their perspective is. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
All right. We're going to go ahead and take a break. When we come back, you will be introduced to 3 of the parliamentarians participating in today's Children's Parliament. You don't want to miss it. Stay tuned.
For over 20 years, Great Belize Television, Channel 5, has been the leader in award-winning local programming. We have also produced some of the best video commercials, documentaries, and live events for clients countrywide. And we continue to offer high-quality production services to maximize your advertising needs for your business or organization. From concept to completion, let us help you achieve your marketing goal by producing your commercial, documentary, graphic animation, live event, or even designing your website. Using state-of-the-art equipment and experienced personnel, we can make your ideas come alive. For more information, come see us on Coney Drive or give us a call at 223-0146 or 223-7781 or email us at gbtv@dtl.net. Great Belize Productions, making great television in Belize.
When someone you love becomes a memory, the memory becomes a treasure. Channel 5 introduces the Daily Obituaries. The Daily Obituaries will broadcast all death and funeral announcements and memorials to honor your loved one's life and memories. The Daily Obituaries airs on Channel 5 prior to the evening newscast, with subsequent repeats at 10 p.m. and 12 noon the following day. It will also be placed online on our social media platforms, all for a standard package fee. Celebrate their lives and memories with Channel 5's Daily Obituaries. Honor in life and reverence in death.
And we are back. And if you're just tuning in, of course, we have shifted out of the studio for today as we join in the celebration of Universal Children's Day. And today in Belmopan City, right here, the children are taking over for the Children's Parliament. We actually have 3 of the participants with us this morning who are getting an early start on their day. And they are Alexandria Fermin, who is going to be the Prime Minister today in the House. We have Nadir Mendoza, who is the leader of the opposition. And we have Kaya Flowers, who is the Deputy Prime Minister. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning.
All right, exciting day.
Yes.
Oh, we got to get some more energy going than that. Are you feeling nervous?
Well, a bit, yeah, I'm feeling nervous.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let me just find out, how did you get selected to participate in today's Parliament?
I don't know much about like the selection process,
Yeah.
but I do know that they had put out kind of like, not like an announcement, but they kind of told, well, I heard from a teacher that they were recruiting for the Parliament, and you know, just as like, not like as a joke, but I didn't take it all that seriously when I signed up, you know, and then I got selected.
And then you
Well,
got the Prime Minister
listen,
role.
And then I
Okay.
got Prime Minister.
Well, yeah, I kind of wanted to ask, I wanted to get from all of you guys, what made you interested in participating in the first place?
It's just that the idea of like a parliament, youth parliament in particular, seemed like such a good idea because it's not every day that kids our age get this platform. We don't get that often to demonstrate that we actually have good ideas, which was really an amazing opportunity.
Yeah.
Well, I found out about this on Facebook, and I decided to apply for it because I have a passion for youth development work because I'm a former Central American Youth Ambassador. So then I believe that this platform will help me to continue youth development within my country to make it a better place for the children of Belize and myself.
And for me, well, I am a member of the CAB, the Children Advisor Body, and our rapporteur told us about the program. But I didn't think I could sign up because I was only 12, and they said you had to be 13 to but anyways, I still signed up, and they accepted me.
And so you're the youngest one in the
Yes,
House today?
I'm the youngest
At
parliamentarian.
12. Now, clearly, there's something, and I can start with you, Alexandra, because there's something about you that made your teachers say, hey, you'll be great for this role, why don't you apply? What would you say is that quality that they saw in you that made them feel that you were fit for it?
I think it comes from the fact that I'm very opinionated and I'm not particularly shy when it comes to expressing those opinions.
Yeah.
And it shows in my work and in class because fitfully speaking, that whenever we do debates or, conversations about controversial topics, even if I have like radical ideas, it doesn't matter if they look at me differently. I just go ahead, whereas some people would be more conservative about it.
Yeah.
And I guess that was what made my teacher go, this is probably a good fit for you.
Take your debate to where it matters, right?
Yeah.
And in preparing for today's parliament, tell me some of the things that you have learned about this process.
For one, it's very easy to be swept up in the politics of it.
Explain.
Because when we were first doing our debate process and we were learning all the rules, they divided us, not officially, but just like informally, to more or less see how we'd play in our roles as the opposition and the government.
Yeah.
And it was very easy to start acting the way that you'd expect these two opposing sides to act.
Yeah.
So as the government, they did listen to our ideas in the informal debate, and just as you would expect, the government easily dismissed the concerns of the opposition because they were, in fact, the opposition.
That's interesting. So it was almost a natural inclination to mimic what we see taking place in the House.
Yeah.
And then what happened?
And then there was a point, I don't think that they told us, I think they wanted us to get to that realization ourselves, that it didn't matter what labels they gave us, that we weren't opposing each other. There weren't two different sides. It wasn't like fighting. It was two different sides of the same conversation. Like, yeah, you have a good idea, but will it work? And that was the opposition's job. It wasn't to say everything that the government does is wrong. And it wasn't the government's job to say, don't listen to the opposition. They're just the opposition. It was our job to say, yeah, building roads for more access, that's a really good idea. And for the opposition to say, yeah, but can we do it? Can we do it given our resources? That was the role that we had to take on for ourselves, learn that because we were talking about the good of all children. It didn't matter what labels they gave us or what roles we were supposed to play.
Okay. And that's it's interesting that to jumpstart the topic this way, because earlier you were talking about reasons why you were getting involved, and you were saying about the voices of young people, or the importance of young people having a voice in conversations like this. So I kind of want to get some feedback from all of you on sort of the areas in which you think that there needs to be more of a youth voice, a voice for the youth represented, or something that you're not seeing in the national public discourse that really affects you guys as young people directly. What are some of those areas that you would like to see addressed?
Well, I personally am doing education, and well, we might not notice it, but because many children do not feel that they can voice their opinion, they don't know who to turn to and tell. So what I think, what I'm voicing on today is the poverty rate in Belize and how it is increasing very rapidly, and how we can find ways to bring it down back and make Belize like a more child-friendly, and education, like the cost less of it.
So you're gonna provide suggestions for that? Wow. Okay.
I'm also talking about education, but education relating to access, and this access is relating to a lack of proper infrastructural development, especially down south with the roads. Because if I'm not correct, approximately 2 weeks ago, coming from Corazon Technical High School, there were some students and teachers trapped due to the dilapidated roads, right? And this prevented proper access to and from this educational institution. And in our country, today, at 21st century, we should not be expecting that in the country of Belize. With a budget of $200 million put in education, which is the biggest, I believe we should have proper infrastructural development to lead to these schools so we can have proper educational access for these students, because as you know, education empowers a nation.
Education is always going to be like a buzzword when it comes to youth, because that's where we are in life constantly. But one thing that really affects me and a lot of other people is the way that we do education and the way that it's standardized. Not everyone learns the same way. Not everyone is interested in the same things. Your aptitudes are different.
Yep.
So saying that someone who is more hands-on, someone with nimble fingers, holding them to the same bar as someone who is more inclined to do math, and letting those numbers, those figures, be a direct reflection of how much they're worth as a person isn't good. It's kind of the source of a lot of mental illness when it comes to people our age, because it's not uncommon that people take that number as their self-worth, and their parents too also enforce that really, really terrible idea that you're only as good as your marks in school.
I'm actually curious, especially that you say this now, and because you also said that you're very opinionated and you're not shy about expressing your opinions. So I kind of want to know if you guys, part of the reason that you participated in this is because perhaps, I don't know, is it that you have encountered, like you trying to share opinions with maybe older people like maybe at your school, it could be in your family or whatever, and you got resistance because maybe you're too young or you shouldn't voice an opinion on that because maybe your perspective. Have all of you experienced that? And is that part of why you're doing participating as well? Anybody can jump in.
Jump in.
Yeah. Well, I believe that we as the children, we look up to you guys as adults, and so the mistakes that we see, we try to learn and try to make a difference from that. So we notice that the leaders are actually making some mistakes. So that is why we are here today. So actually, tell them about their mistakes, that we are not too young to tell them that they are doing wrong, because they think that just because we are young, we can't tell them that they did wrong. But that's why we're here, to make a difference.
Yeah. There are a lot of people who kind of just bundle the idea of young people into one. And as adults, we make a lot of assumptions as to what your priorities are. So we'll say, oh, you're just really interested in social media and whatever trending topic it is and what new celebrity is doing what, and not necessarily paying attention to what's taking place on a national level. And I want to ask you that. If you were to be honest about what you and your peers and the wider groups that you see around you of young people, do you find that there's a sense of awareness of paying attention to issues that really matter? Go ahead.
Oh, well, I believe, yes, we pay attention to awareness, but the problem is, like he asked before, that we don't have, they don't allow us to speak because they think that we're like you said, they group us into one, that all youths make bad decisions, but that's not right. We are different. Not everyone is the same, so you can't be stereotypical about that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So basically, that's why we're here today, to make a voice, to show that our words have meaning.
Yeah.
And we want to see a change in our country, because this change is not only for us, but everyone in the country of Belize.
Yeah. Would you have liked to have been a part of any decision of recent that you've seen?
I would have liked to be a part of the initiative that they sat and decided that Belize was going to be a more eco-friendly place. That's a part of a conversation. I'm a science major, and doing things like biology and chemistry, you really get to learn that humans are the most selfish species alive. And we hurt the place that we live so often for our own selfish gain that it's becoming ridiculous. And as a result, even our eco-friendly measures aren't enough, and they're not being fully enforced, especially for a place like Belize that is thriving on environmental tourism, our Great Barrier Reef, and all of our beautiful wildlife sanctuaries and things like that, for us to be just flinging styrofoam into landfills and stuff like that.
So if you were in that conversation, what would you have made as a suggestion?
It has to start with little things, especially like the fact that our major manufacturers, places like Bowen and Bowen, definitely like that, like the plastic baggie that the water comes in. It's something really efficient and convenient, but at the end of the day, because it's so efficient and convenient, it's used so often. That's a huge part of pollution. So like the bigger bottles, a lot of people on campus where I go to school tend to reuse the bottles, but the plastic baggie doesn't have the same versatility. You can't reuse it. Once it's over, it's over.
That's interesting. Yeah.
So, and then, just, piggybacking off of Marlene's question, do you guys, watch the news, keep abreast of of current politics, and do you often find yourself disagreeing with decisions that are made or things that are said by people in positions of authority? And does it make you want to get involved more in, I suppose you're already participating here, or does it at times discourage you as well? Can you talk to us, I guess, a little bit about like whether or not how active you are in terms of paying attention to what's going on nationally, and whether or not you have strong opinions either way?
And one of my colleagues say that in the presentation that we're going to make today, that it's not just about Belize, because it's not a Belizean climate, it's a global climate, and on some scale everyone is facing the same things. So keeping abreast through the internet, it's like really helpful through about what is affecting places like the US and the UK, because it's a trickle-down effect.
Yeah.
And what ultimately in turn is going to affect us is really useful in terms of formulating opinions, because it's not like we can actually do anything, which is part of the problem really. Formulating opinions about things like climate change and changes in Belize's constitution that we don't necessarily agree with, things like policies for education, and the fact that either they're doing too much in certain places and too little in others.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you think that it's maybe because sometimes let's say older persons are kind of out of touch in terms of what the needs are, because which is why the participation from young people is so important. So is that the case you find a lot of the time? Anybody could jump into?
Well, I believe because, you see, adults try to address the issues of children, but who better to address their issues than the children themselves? Like, you can go and say, oh, we say this, but we don't say. You have to come to us first and find out what we are actually going through.
Yeah. And, I think Gavin used perhaps the best the terminology is that sometimes we are out of touch as adults. As much as I want to remember what it's like to be 10 or 11 or 12 or even 17, I can't. And the reality of my 17-year-old years versus yours, they're so dramatically different. So what are you going to use this platform today to announce to all of Belize about priority areas for children, weaknesses, gaps, or even great accomplishments? What are you going to use to really you'll have the attention of the nation? What do you want them to pay attention to?
Well, we want them to pay attention to the rights of the child, the right to an education, to health, and to security. We want them to know that we have a life, that we are human beings, and you should treat us like how you want to treat anyone else.
Yeah.
They should keep in mind not just because we're children, we don't have a voice. We don't have a voice, like I mentioned before. We want a proper education, we want health care, we want safety in our own country. But however, in Belize today, we know crime rate is relatively high.
Yeah.
So we are here to voice these problems, so the government can enforce laws, enact better laws to help protect us, to help foster better education and our safety within the country, and especially healthcare. As within the country of Belize, it's very, unsatisfactory. And the only way you can get satisfactory or great healthcare if you go to private clinics, which most of us are not fortunate enough to go to or have resources.
Another point that I am bringing on is that children with disabilities are often left behind, and also the poor children who cannot afford the necessary school supply or have to use things that their older relative once used, they often get discriminated because of that. And nobody often notices it, and that's one of the issues that we are facing, which causes bullying, which causes the crime and stuff in Belize. So that's the things that we are trying to reduce today.
Yeah. A part of the reality, though, of the very security issue that you're talking about is that we have children getting involved in crime. If you're going to be the voice of the people, or the voice of your demographic. You're also a voice of those children. What are you hoping to bring to the attention of the public once again when you look at children who've come in conflict with the law, who've fallen off what is the traditional path of schooling, education, and the straight and narrow?
No one does crime as a first alternative. No one grows up and says, I'm definitely going to be a criminal. It's an avenue taken when you feel helpless and hopeless, and as if that's the only avenue that you can see working out. The idea is that we're asking, well, we're not really asking. We're bringing these issues forward in hopes that they're not gonna just listen, because listening isn't always enough.
Yeah.
They have to do something about it so that these kids who do come in conflict with the law know that there was another alternative. Yeah, maybe you're not that good at school, but maybe you're good at a trade. Yeah. You know, maybe you could be a fashion designer, a chef, a dancer, a musician. It doesn't always have to come down to, I'm not good at math, so I need to sell meth. You know, it's not always like that.
Yeah.
And to add on to what the Prime Minister said, one of our members are also bringing the point that we should add more extra activities so that the children can do in the evening, so that they can spend their time wisely instead of thinking about the negative things that are happening in Belize.
Yeah.
Also, that how they can make a difference, and just by starting by small things, we can make a great change in Belize.
Nadir, you're from Punta Gorda, right? So you are bringing the perspective of, I mean, because you're PG, and then you have all the rural communities. You spoke of Corazon. We have reporters in our news studio that have documented the challenges of some of the rural schools and what it takes to get an education. How are you hoping to be able to use this platform to be a voice that represents all of these children?
I'm hoping to use this platform to let the nation see what's happening in Belize, so they can fight for a change, so the government can see what's happening, so they turn their eye to this problem, because it's a major problem affecting the children, the future of Belize actually. Yeah. So using this platform to make sure they know what's happening, so they can go assess the problem, find a solution, and make these communities a better place for these children through roads, building rural schools. Because I went to a rural school, Julian Technical High School. Oh, yeah. And some of my students, some of my classmates, my colleagues, they have to get up 3 in the morning just to be at school for 7 o'clock.
Every day? Every day.
And they have to leave 3 again from in the evening and reach till about 7 or 6 in the night. Wow. And for a person, and for a child who's getting an education, that defeats the whole purpose. Because you can't concentrate. If you can't concentrate, you can't learn properly. You can't learn properly, you won't have a proper education. But a proper education, it can lead to things that stay above, like crime. So this platform is important, not only for me, not only for the children of Toledo, but also the children of Belize. So we have a voice for them, who cannot make it, or who don't have the opportunity to do this.
And not only the children in Toledo, because I come from Cayo, and I attend Eton STA High School, and we have many children at that school who come from villages like Las Tambas, Docron 1, 2, and 3, and even further villages to the back. And do you see how it was raining the other day? They had to pass through water to get home. And what time should they have to do their homework and stuff? And that's the things that make their education rate drop, because they don't find the purpose in school if you have to get up this early. So, and then you go home so late. So what time do you have to be you to actually do something good with your time instead of just traveling and learning to school, and you feel stressed out because of that? So we want to make a difference for these children.
Absolutely. And that's an important perspective to bring, even for other children as well, who maybe just have to walk down the street to go to school. Is that kind of what you get a sense of just amongst yourself? Because you're all from different parts of the country. You just met like a few days ago, and everybody's kind of bringing their issue to the forefront. What has the experience been like amongst yourselves, realizing that, okay, what's happening in Awakate or in Ontario are either similar or drastically different?
Well, we have to talk the overall point because we can't just focus on, like, I'm Colette, so I can't only focus on the issues affecting only Colette, but the national issues, because we may come from different districts, but we are one people, one nation. So when other people from different countries look at Belize, they don't look at only Ontario or only Orange Walk. They look at the country on a whole. So we can't just worry about one area, but the whole country in itself.
And like what you mentioned, that when we came, we're from different parts of the country. And for example, we realized that the struggles other children are facing, we find it easy that we can just walk down the street, a 2-minute stroll to school, while others have to get up from 3 in the morning, 4-hour bus rides. Like, we're selfish to an extent. Like, we can just get up. We don't have to worry about we're running late for school. We won't miss the bus like the other children. If they miss the bus, that's it. And the teachers, some teachers are just like ignorant like to that aspect. Like, if you miss the bus, that's your problem. You should get up early. You want your education, well, you need to work for it. But sometimes it's not just our fault. It's because we don't have enough time to get up, because we also have to come in late. We don't have enough time to sleep, and sometimes we're just sleepy. We just oversleep.
Wow.
And that's a problem.
Yeah.
Another point that we are bringing across is that many children, why we have a lot of dropout is because they find school not fun. They find it boring, actually, because you either have to take math, science, or English. And nothing else fun, like art, music, dance, nothing that they are actually in is actually in school. So that's why I believe that we have a lot of dropouts, because I believe that the government needs to put in some more activities that will make children passionate about going to school and becoming someone that they really want to become in the future.
This is thank you for sharing your perspective. What I could clearly hear is that you put a lot of thought into what you hope you would be able to get the decision makers to pay attention to. If you were to say, so we spoke of education, you spoke of healthcare and its inaccessibility and safety, but what's the one thing, when you found out you were going to be a part of the parliament, you said, if I get the opportunity, I want everybody to know that this is what young people think, feel, or need?
One of the things that I found was ridiculous is that you expect us at ages 14, 15 to choose a major, a career for the rest of our lives. But things as fickle as what we want to see, like it's, you don't give us the opportunity to express that opinion. At 16, you get to choose your major, your career, but at the same time, at 16, you can't walk up to a lawmaker and say, hi, I hope you have the best intentions, but this is what's going on. This is what you need to fix. It's kind of, you're giving us mixed messages. You're raising leaders.
So you're saying because you have to pick a major at 16, but you can't pick your leader. Is that what you're saying?
It's like, and I feel like they weigh about the same. Who we want to represent us and who we choose to protect us weighs about the same as what we want to do for the rest of our lives. Yeah. It's not fair in a way. They're raising leaders in theory but not in application. Everyone wants to raise a leader. They take leadership classes in school, teach us how to do public speaking, but we don't get the opportunity to put it into practice.
Now, you're the Prime Minister and the leader of the opposition, and so you're going to have very critical roles today. What type of leadership do you have within the Parliament with your own sides of the House?
Well, my leadership, with my side of the government, the opposition, with my side of the government, the opposition is basically like we work together, and we don't work together against the government, but with the government, because we're here to make a change. We're not just here to go against everything the government says.
Yeah.
No, the government is here to go against everything the opposition says or don't listen to us. We're here to make a change. We're here to work together in unity, cooperation.
What did you learn about the significance of the opposition in the House?
The significance of the opposition, like on TV, you might see the significance of the opposition is to rebut everything the government has to say. But the actual reality is to make sure these laws that are going to be passed are passed so that it can benefit not only one person but everyone. It covers a wide area So it makes sure that everyone has. It makes sure that these laws are versatile, so that everyone can benefit from it. It makes sure they are enacted,
Yeah.
so no problems, no dilemmas arise later on in the future. Like some of the laws we have today in Belize, they need to revisit them because of major problems that bring forth, for example, that came forward.
Mm-hmm.
So to me that's a major role of the opposition. That's a major role for opposition to work together with the government,
Yeah.
to have a better Belize, not to feud
So you
and
see it
fight
as
with
working
yeah,
together.
being
Also,
collaborative.
I believe that opposition is here so that you can hear from the both sides of the party of what the law will be. Because if it is only the government side, everybody from the government has to agree if you like it or not. And if it's like that, what about the people in the opposition? You don't know if they like what is going on. So that's why the opposition is here, to also voice their opinion, to make the laws.
In our mock administration, everybody weighs about the same. These are just titles that we voted each other into because the roles needed to be filled.
Yeah.
They don't mean anything. I represent Queen Square, but it doesn't mean that my opinion means any more than the person who represents Fort George.
I'm curious to find out whether, now that you've been participating in the process, whether, having learned, I'm assuming, new things about the whole parliamentary process, if you have any observations or opinions on the way we do things and whether there's room for improvement or whether that can change. I don't know if you've had any thoughts in those terms, but I'm just wondering if you have any suggestions, or if you formed opinions on the way our government works and ways that you might want to see it improve.
Well, in the House, my first concern is the standing orders. We got our standing orders book with only a few of the standing orders, and when we read them, we notice that we watch how the government actually acts in the House. We're like, are they following these standing orders?
Did you get the same book? I'm kidding. Yeah. So what you read in the standing orders is not the practice that you see in the House, yeah? You were going to share?
Yeah, the same thing. Like the standing orders says one thing, and we follow the standing orders.
Yeah.
But the government, what we see on television, the parliament, they don't follow the standing orders. Like they defy every rule, or almost every rule in the standing order, and like that is not a good example to set for the children or anyone in Belize or international, because it's a parliament. They have certain rules and guidelines and restrictions you should follow, because you're setting an example for not only for the country but on a global perspective.
Yeah, yeah.
I do understand why some people do defy the standing orders. For example, they showed us a clip of what not to do, and an area representative got up. He was very emotional, saying that the speaker got appointed to quiet his side, that was the opposition. And I get that was definitely a point that needed to be made, because that's actually factual. It does seem that way, that the speaker was specifically appointed, in the hopes that only the government be heard. It does appear that way. That was an opinion that needed to be expressed. However, that wasn't the time or the place. And I do feel, because they meet so infrequently and so irregularly, rural area representatives that have real problems, especially when they're on the opposition side, don't get the platform regularly enough to frequently bring to light all the problems that they're facing.
Yeah.
Water boards are an issue, purified water is an issue. And even when they brought that to rural areas, there was still a lack of trust. People don't trust the government, and it might be because they're so inconsistent.
Yeah. So what I hear from you is that you are seeing kind of the startling reality of what should be in the House, but what is not. And what does that make you think of the level of decision making? Because decisions are made every single time, whether infrequently or as infrequent as it is, decisions are made in our House. So since they haven't been having the type of debate that you think, what are your thoughts now?
Well, it's sad actually, because of the government, how they look in the House, that's how they look down upon us. They expect that we are going to do the exact same thing that the government does, and that we're going to look like a circus in the House. But we're actually trying to make a difference, and we're trying to do what they're not doing.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of people don't notice.
Yeah. So what about the people who are say, oh, you're just going to talk for one day and then life will continue as normal after this?
It's a start. Everything has to start somewhere. This might be one day in the House of Representatives, and sooner or later, it might be that every area representative has a youth advisor sitting beside them in that house to tell them that, hey, this might work for the adults, but half the population is us.
Yeah.
It's not working for us, you know?
Seen that we've started somewhere because in the child advisor body, well, for Santa Elena, San Ignacio, we noticed that we work very closely to our mayor, Mr. Earl Trapp,
Yeah.
and we get to give him our ideas of how we can make our twin towns better. So that shows that we're already making a difference.
Yeah.
So now we're just taking the bigger step of going to the bigger people.
Nice. All right, and just share with me what you hope will be the result at the end of today. After people have seen all of you, because you've been preparing for how long?
5 weeks.
5 weeks, yeah. Over a month, almost, yeah. And you're gonna head on into that house in just a few hours or less, and you are going to show Belize what our young people really think and feel and articulate it according to the standing orders, most importantly. Yeah. What do you hope that after people have watched or seen the recaps of the Parliament, what do you hope is going to change within them in their understanding of young people?
Well, I hope they change their perception of young people, that they have hope. Because on social media sites like Facebook, when the child Parliament was advertised,
yeah.
some people commented, this is just another circus show. And that shows that if that is what the people, just a fraction, the people of Belize thinks about us, then that gives us reason to believe that's a reason to show that they don't want our voices to be heard. Mm-hmm. And these same people might have children. Mm-hmm. And it's basically like they're telling that to their own child, because we're representing their child and every child in the country of Belize. So I hope their perspective change about children and the youths of Belize, that we can show them they have a future and they have a good future that can lead them positively.
Nice.
Best case scenario, that the government really does start to value what we think. But at the least, I hope that parents, because change starts in the home, that parents value their children's opinions. If you don't value your child's opinion, what makes you think a stranger would? My mom was very vocal about me never, ever, having, like, what's the word?
To hold back.
Yeah, not holding back when it comes, no reservations about what I thought and what I think should happen in or around our home, respectfully, of course. Yeah. And giving other children the idea that here in your very own home, your voice matters. You're a part of this decision. We'll give them the freedom to say that this is my country. I have a place in this decision.
Nice. Well, what I hope is that they will take us seriously, that they won't think that we're just doing this for a joke, but that they will actually listen to what we have to say and take it into consideration, because we're not just doing this for fun, but it's actually the truth. It's what we really need to do.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing all of you in Parliament today. I have high expectations of what will be brought to the floor and seeing just what all the young people will be contributing. Prime Minister Alexandria, Leader of the Opposition Nadir, and Deputy Prime Minister Kaya, thank you so much for joining us today, and best of luck. We're going to go ahead and take a break, and we're not done yet. We're talking about the 30th anniversary of the Convention on the Rights of the Child. Now we're going to have a crash course, right?
Yeah, for sure. We're going to learn all about it.
That's right. We are going to get more details about the convention, what it means, and what you need to know. That's coming up after the break. Stay tuned.